The first one is the microsystem. This is people and objects in the individual's immediate environment. The second one is mesosystem, the connection between each microsystem. So microsystem you can think are like you're at the center and the things around you are like the people around you that is like making connection with you. Macrosystem is consists of cultural values, laws, customs, and resource. Jean Piaget. So this guy is known for his theory of cognitive development in children. So Piaget's stages of cognitive development, there are three stages. The first one is sensorimotor stage. The second one is preoperational stage. And the third one is preoperational stage. The next one we're going to talk about is the cross-cultural research on motor development. It states that the culture impacts infants' motor development and their conscious actions such as sitting, crawling, maybe walking, something like that. And this may happen continuously with cultural factor influencing the next one is ecocentrism. So in Piaget's theory, the preoperational child difficulty taking another point of view. So it's like not only occurred during the infant period, it's also happened during like the early childhood, which is like you only believe what you believe. So even though like people tell you, for example, your mom said that don't eat too much candy, it's bad for you. You might not really like listen to her, right? This is an example for egocentrism. Let's keep talking about the cross-sectional. So cross-sectional research, it's a research method and it's studying different groups of people at different ages at the same time. This allows researchers to gather data quickly. And the good thing about it is it's less expensive, but it can show the changes over time, and absolutely it cannot show the cause and effect by using cross-sectional research. So this, which might be impacted by the cohort effect. The cohort effect is a group of individuals shares a common characteristic, can be like same social group, same background. But usually when we talk about cohort in data, we're usually talking about an age range. So basically it's like in a particular study, the people who is being studied are maybe the same age. For example, all of them are like around 18 to 19, something like that. And research results might be different, not because of a different age group, but because of the different cultural backgrounds. Cultural could be a huge impact to humans' development. The next one is prenatal development. So this is the brain and body form and grow rapidly. And it happening the three main stages: germinal stage, embryonic stage, fetal stage, that influence prenatal development. So the first one is teratogens, which is substance that can cause birth defect or developmental problems in a developing fetus. So for example, alcohol, tobacco, drugs, environmental factors, water pollution, air pollution. Fetal alcohol syndrome is if a mom drinks alcohol during pregnancy, this can cause a range of physical, cognitive, and behavior problems for the infant. And alcohol actually impacts our lives a lot. And if you are drinking before 21 or 25, which means that if you drink alcohol before your frontal lobe is actually being well developed, it could affect how your neurons work, and it could actually cause the damage to your brain. Same to the infants. The second one is maternal illness. This is that any disease and or infection that the mother experiencing during pregnancy that can affect the developing fetus. So HIV could be one of it. So if the mother has HIV and she got pregnant, there's a high possibility or a high rate that this will pass down to the fetus or the infant. Genetic mutation can occur voluntarily or be inherited from parents and can lead to various genetic disorders affecting both physical and cognitive development. And this is one of the reasons that it is really important that we go and check our body if during our pregnancy, even though we are not sick. It's pretty important to do any kind of the genetics scan before you can actually see the fetus. So it's pretty bad to say it, but if you want to do abortion at that time, you can still have a chance to do it, even though it's pretty bad for you, for the baby. But if you don't want the baby to get sick and you do the genetic scan and you actually see a genetic mutation, that might be one of the chance. So there are some of the genetic mutation. So for example, the most famous one could be Down syndrome. This is because of the extra copy of chromosome 21. So all of the people who got the Down syndrome will have the not the exact same looks, but they all look like this. The next one is Turner syndrome. This is the missing or incomplete X chromosome. So it can lead the infant has pretty weird body ratio, like long arms, short legs, or long face. And next one, we're going to talk about hormones. And hormone is chemical messengers that regulate many body functions and behaviors, includes aspect of fetal development, including brain growth and development. So the next term we're going to learn about is atypical brain development. So this one, it may affect the behavior and cognitive ability for a people. The next one is the environmental factor. This is not an internal one, but it is any external elements that can affect prenatal development, pollution, water contaminants, something like that. The next one is genetic mutation again. So this can make a fetus more susceptible to effects teratogens or environmental toxin. Infancy. Infant reflexes is the baby. They have this when infants are first born, which is right after they come to world, and are involuntarily movement that help with survival. Is neurological responses. Basically, it's like they do the reaction without their thinking about it. So the doctor will check it to see if the brain and nervous system are functionally properly for the baby. The first reflex is palmar grasp. So this is when we put the finger into the baby's palm, the baby will close their hand around it and will hold your finger. The second one is plantar grasp. This is when finger is placed underneath baby's toe and they will curl their toes. The third one is Babinski reflex. This is when the bottom of a baby is stroked or being touched. And their big toe will move upward and their other toe will fan out. The fourth one is a routine reflex. This is when baby's cheek is gently stroked or touched again, stroked near their mouth. They will turn in that direction with the mouth open and ready to eat. Because when you touch an infant's cheek, they'll ultimately think that like, okay, you're going to feed me. Later on, when the infant grow up a little bit and turn into a child, and then the child will start to develop the gross motor skill. So the gross motor skill is they involve larger movements such as crawling, walking, and allow the children to navigate their environment. This is why when we're kids, our parents will always try to hold our hands and like let us to climb everywhere and touch everything. And the fine motor skills, it's evolved the smaller movements such as holding a spoon, and they are critical for tasks such as feeding, playing. This is the first experiment that we're going to talk about today. It's called visual cliff experiment. So basically, it just provides insight into when an infant develops depth perception. And the scientists use visual cliff, the cliff, apparatus, glasses are placed over the drop and the infants on one side and the parent on the drop side. So basically, like you can see the table, right? The infant will be placed on here and the parents will be placed on stand on the drop side and kind of like waving to the kids. So the infant will try to climb or like try to reach the parents. During this experiment, the infants rather go or refuse to go across it because of the fake drop off. So it shows that infants had actually developed depth perception. So let's keep talking about development. We have some critical moments during our development. The first one is imprints. This is not for human. This is for animals only. This is when they form an attachment to the first moving object the newborn animal sees. Usually it's its mother. Human doesn't do it because when human first born, they can't really see anything. It's really blurred, and they start to recognize who is their parents after a couple of period of time. So that's why if you have an egg as a pet, and when the chicken just hatched, and the first person they see is you, it's probably they're going to think, or they're going to view you as their mother, even though you're human, they're chicken. This is because of the imprint. The sensitive period is the time period when the brain is able to learn a certain skill more quickly. After this period, you can still learn the skills, but harder and takes a longer time. The most famous example is language. So when an infant or a child they want to learn a certain language, it's pretty fast for them to develop the language they're going to talk about, which also their mother tongue, when they're in around 1 year old and 2 years old. But the thing is, even though during the sensitive period, if in your family people are talking about more than 3 or 4 languages, it will slow down the processing time for the infant. So that's why if you speak like 4 different languages in home, the baby at your house maybe can only start to talk after like 1 or 2. They're going to take longer time. Another example is TikTok dance. For us, like for teenager or like young adults, it's pretty fast for us to learn how to do like a new TikTok dance. But for like older generation people like your mom, your dad, they can still learn it, but it's harder and takes longer time. We're going to talk some stages. The first one is trust versus mistrust stage. So, according to Erikson, it's another guy, another scientist, this is the period during which infants develop a sense of trust or mistrust, and largely dependent on how well their needs are met by their caregivers. So, for example, you will trust the people who feed you more instead of the one who is like busy out at work or something, even though they might still like you, but as an infant, they don't understand. They only trust the people who fulfill their needs. The next one is autonomy versus shame and doubt stage. So based on the Erikson stage in which a toddler or an infant toddler learn to exercise will and do things independently, and failure to do so causes shame and doubt. The next one is initiative vs guilt stage. It's also according to Erikson, the period during which children aged 3 to 6 years experience conflict between independence of actions and sometimes negative results of that action. Use me as an example. I tried to steal candy when I was a kid, when I just start to walk. I know it's bad, and I actually knock off shelf, and my mom gets so mad at me, and I actually feel guilt that time, and my mom recorded it actually. And I know that industry versus inferiority stage. So this is from age 6 to 12, characterized by a focused effort to attain competence in meeting the challenge present by parents, peers, school, and the other complexity of the modern world. And failure to fit in can result in inferiority. The next one is identity versus role confusion. Also based on Erikson's stage during which teenagers and young adults search for and become their true selves. That's why a lot of people, especially during high school, they need to see a therapist or has some identity issues, especially if they have two identity, which is like, for example, like African American, American born Chinese, American born Korean, something like that. They might have some question about their identity, or even like which kind of people you like. For example, you're bisexual, you're straight, you're gay, you're lesbian, something like that. That is also a stage called identity versus role confusion. Intimacy versus isolation stage. According to Erikson, a period during early adulthood that focuses on developing close relationship while developing careers. And let's go to adolescence. We're going to start getting to puberty. Puberty is a really, really big part during the whole adolescence. So adolescence start here. So that's why it's Important, right? And it's when an individual reach sexual maturity and they can now reproduce. We don't really do it in the early young age right now because it will hurt our body. But back in like ancient time period, people they start to have baby when they're around 13 to 14 age. So when they're in 13, 14 years old, they start to have baby. That's because they get into puberty and they have the ability to do it, but highly not recommended because you may die. And some symptoms of puberty is like you might sweat a lot, your voice change, and you have extra hair, and you will have some like period, your mood will change. Mood will be affected by puberty a lot. So it's okay if you having some like mental struggle right now, for example, high anxiety, that is because of your puberty. If this will make you feel better. After we talk about puberty, there are some characteristics that's really important and we need to know them. So the first one is primary sex characteristics. So this is directly related to the reproductive system and the ability to reproduce. It includes the start of menarche and sperm. So menarche is the first time people have your period. The second one is spermachy, is first time they ejaculate. The second one is secondary sex characteristic. They are traits that are indirectly related to reproduction, such as man will having wider shoulder or woman has less facial hair. You'll also experience a rapid increase in height and weight. The next one is menopause. This is usually occurs at middle adulthood and it's the mark of the end of woman's menstrual cycle. Basically, it's just like you end with your period, you're done with your period, you don't have your period anymore in your rest of your life. Yeah, and the ability to conceive. The next theory we're going to highlight is the social learning theory. It's the theory that we learn social behavior by observing and imitating and by being rewarded or punishment. So, for example, you saw your friends or like you saw your parents are doing some positive things, you're going to do it. And if you get rewarded or like you get any benefit from it, you learn it and it's a good skill and you're going to use it in the rest of your life. And we're going to talk about different parenting styles. Parents can have a really huge impact on how people develop. Absolutely, environment and genes are both important, but as a huge part of the environment, parents can actually impact a people actually more than genetic. Parenting styles, it's developed by Deanna Borman. So first one, we're going to talk about authoritarian parenting. This is the style of parenting in which the parent is overly strict, showing little warmth to the child. For example, we can usually see this type of parents in an elite family. Like the mother will be super strict to the children, like, oh my gosh, you're already 3 years old, start learning piano, practice golf, do your SAT work even though you're 3 years old kids. Maybe the child will be smart, but it will give the child itself a lot of pressure and it could lead to like further mental health illness or even they will probably hate their parent after they're growing up. The second one is permissive parenting. They're a little bit better. They're style characterized by the placement of a few limits on the child's behavior. To be honest, they're the best. A little bit better than the authoritarian parenting and super way better than uninvolved parenting. So uninvolved parenting is a style that applies few demands on child and provide them with little warmth. Basically, it's just like you have your kids, but after you having kids, you just throw them away to their grandparents and you go out for work or something. Probably, maybe sometimes life forces you to do it, but it's really bad for the kids because it will affect how they view the world, how they develop their behaviors, and probably they will have some negative thoughts about themselves because the lack of love from the parent. So if you're going to have a kid in the future, please be a permissive parent. They're way better than others.